This information you are about to hear and perhaps view, these are not necessarily the thoughts or the ideas of Gary C. Clement or the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast. We are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the parties the story is about or was interviewed for. Parts of this content may not be owned by or the property of the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, G2 Network Media, or any other company we are affiliated with, and this information is strictly the opinion of those being interviewed. This content is for information purposes only, and although we may make reference to various news stories, we share our own independent beliefs about the content and provide our own opinions. Please enjoy the information. Yes, this is Gary Clement, and this is the Gary Clement Radio Show and podcast. And today we have a phenomenal young lady that's here guesting overnight with us. And in the Black community, many of us know about struggle, sacrifice, and the fear of no money at all. Our guest today is a business startup advisor, a tech entrepreneur, a brand strategist, a resilient expert, among, I'm sure, many other things. So please help me welcome Miss Dee Williams. And how are you?
Hey, how are you today?
Okay, sure. So
thank you so much for having me. I just want to say thanks for having me.
No problem. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about who you are and your life growing up, please.
Yeah, my name is Dee Williams, Audacionaire, and I help professionals level up in their career, their business, and their life. And I do that in a number of ways. I do that mainly through recruitment and staffing, helping people to, helping to solve the talent shortage by helping folks either build their own staffing business or helping folks find work opportunities. And then I also help fill the skills gap by providing a online course program platform where people can go in and teach their online courses, turn their passion into a purpose, and do all those great things. So I have a lot of fun with the work that I do. I just wanted to start where I am now, who Dee is now. So so that'll give you some context. But you also asked the question of like a little bit about my childhood. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and or Maryland, and I grew up in a time where I would say that was most memorable for people in my age group. At least I was born in '77, and so growing up in the '80s was just definitely a different time, I think, to grow up in the United States. And just like many other stories, you know, we grew up in a neighborhood that wasn't so safe and wasn't so great, but my mom always did her best and to try to make sure that, you know, that me and my brother had the best. But you know, life was rough, and for me, from the age of 8 to 21, I think that the most unthinkable things that could happen to a person could happen to a person. Definitely, I was tested in so many different ways. It started from, you know, my stepfather touching me while my mom would be at work, or the babysitter's grandson, who was 31, I think, 24 or something. He was older than me. I was 8, you know, deciding that he wanted to punish me, I guess, through sexual abuse when his grandmother wasn't around, and just kind of dealing with that with my mom and trying to get her to understand that I needed her to protect me differently, and her not really understanding that properly, which led to us leaving the city and moving out into the county, and me running away every chance I got, you know, trying to find some refuge from the lady who clearly, in my mind, at that age, didn't understand how to protect me. And that was, and that's where my journey really, really began. I ended up having a baby, getting pregnant at 11, having a baby at 12, and by a 31-year-old man, and going through that process, going through middle school as a teen mom was super hard. 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade breastfeeding, you know, while my friends were going out, my breasts were leaking. It was just like a very intense time. And I had to figure out the terrains, like going through that. And And I did that until I was about 13. I moved in with my aunt for a couple of years, and my son and I. And then I ended up getting my own place when I was about 15, like 15, 16. I got my own place, and I was having my second son by this time. And I, decided that I was going to take care of myself and take care of my babies. And, I wasn't going to need anybody else. And the road just got rockier. It got crazier, but a lot of great things did happen. But, some really crazy things happened, living by myself in the hood, I had big holes in my floors, no furniture for me and my babies, and just trying to maneuver through that. And who I am as a person. Am I who everyone says I am? Because everybody is telling me based on what I'm doing and based on my circumstances and based on what's happened to me that basically, I'm not good. I'm not good enough. I am, and this is who I'm going to be. This person who I don't necessarily think that I saw for myself, but explaining that to people was irrelevant because they had already created their own vision of who I was. They had already decided who they believed that I was, but I always knew different. And so trying to figure out how to become that person when everyone is telling me that I'm going to become somebody totally different, like blocking that out was just very challenging. And then still trying to just maneuver, because like every time I met somebody, it felt like, especially an adult, they were trying to rape me, or they were taking from me, or they were lying to me, or they were, hitting me, or forcing something down my throat, or there were very few occasions where somebody was taking the time to just say, man, how can I help? Or, you're amazing. Or it was just not like that. It was the complete opposite. So when I did meet somebody who saw value in me or saw my value, I paid attention. I wasn't so stubborn, because it was like, oh, you must be smart. That's what I would think in my brain. Oh, you must be smart. You see the value in me. And those key people changed the trajectory of my life in a lot of different ways. And I'm so thankful that those people were definitely put in my life, and they were the most awkward people. The people I went to church with were the ones that hurt me the most, and my family maybe, but mainly the people at church. They were very judgmental. They pointed. They talked about me on the mic, in the back. It was just a very overwhelming. And it stayed like that until I left. But that was challenging. Just trying to maneuver through life as a little girl with no real parents, no parenting. You know what I'm saying? It was interesting. I'm only giving you bits and pieces, but it was a crazy journey. I gave you up to 16.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So let's digress. Let's back up here a little bit, okay? Because I think this is actually, when I saw this on LinkedIn and I was reading through this, I said, well, I got to see if I can get this lady and stuff on my show, because this is very, very interesting. All the things that you've been through at such a young, early, part of your life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now, what do people not understand about inner city Baltimore, Maryland? What do people not understand about that?
I don't know what they didn't understand about inner city Baltimore. I would say that, but it was just a different dynamic. You know what I'm saying? It was different. It was right at the cusp of when like crack cocaine was coming into the Black community. So I remember growing up right before it came in, and then seeing it come in, and my mom like moving us out before it became crazy. But what I will say is that I definitely saw a sense of family initially growing up. Like those were the first. We were a community. We did things just as a very young girl before I turned 8. I would say I had a pretty cool life from the time I could remember till up until 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was definitely family oriented, and we definitely were a community, and we did things, and we, those are great. Outside jump rope, double dutch contests, and, we didn't have the internet, Atari wasn't even about just that at that point just yet. I remember when Atari launched. I feel so old saying all of this, but but we were still going outside and playing with each other outside to entertain ourselves at that time. So it was definitely more safer to be outside and to do things. So you're engaging with your community.
Right. I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And was your father around at all, or?
No, my dad was not around. At the time, my dad is now since passed, but at the time, my mom, my dad did not like, I found out later, but my dad did not like the church that my mom went to. My mom was essentially in a cult, and he didn't want his daughter to grow up into the cult, but she was like, this is not a cult, this is my church. And so that kind of ripped them apart. And that was just on the surface of things, amongst many other things. I won't get into all of that. You can talk to my mama about that.
I see.
But what I will say is that she created the what I knew about my dad my first 16, maybe 17 years of my life was that he was dangerous. Stay far away from him. If he comes to the door, he needs to know the secret password. If he doesn't know the password, call 911. Never let him in, and he's dangerous. So that's what I heard about my dad from the time I was born all the way up until I physically met him in person, and had a real conversation with him. Wow. I only remember 2 occasions where he came up to the church. One, he came up to the church, and all the men in the church came out. He told them he had a bomb. If they wouldn't let his daughter out, he was going to bomb the church. So they called the police and stuff like that. I remember that, and I remember my 5th, I think, birthday party. And he showed up. Somebody in the family told him, and he showed up, and they were telling me, get away from him, get away from him. And he was like, I got you a gift. And they was like, get away from him. And then, next thing you know, I heard them saying, I think he had a bomb in the box. I don't know if that was true or not. My dad said that he just wanted me away from them, and I did meet him when I turned 16, 17. And we ended up having an interesting relationship for a couple of years, and then we became very close. And then he became my best friend, and then he passed.
Wow, that's very interesting. Okay, so now you said that you were 12 years old and pregnant. I mean, that's a mouthful right there, because I live in North Carolina, and like you said, that is considered rape and everything else. So how did that play out, I guess, between you and your mother, when she found out that you were pregnant? Did she try to maybe have the police department or whatnot to arrest this man for doing this, or what? How does that play out, please?
No, actually I was 11, and when my mom found out, by the time my mom found out, the first thing she wanted to do was abort the baby. Because she did not want people to know what had happened to me. It was, I think, more about how she was being perceived. And so we had a whole ordeal planning for me to fly to New York to get an abortion. And the day before it was time to go on the flight, I just told her, I'm not going. I'm not going. Y'all can go. I ain't going. And she was just like, what do you mean you're not going? I was like, I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not having an abortion. I'm not going. I'm having this baby. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm having this baby. I don't know how or what, but I'm having this baby with or without you. And I just don't feel comfortable killing the kid. The kid is too far along, in my opinion, to just be killing the kid. I'm not killing the baby. And so she said, well, I'm not going to help you. And I said, that's cool. I'll figure it out, but I'm not going to New York. And so I didn't go to New York. And then our relationship just, I don't know, we just, just trying to figure things out from there. My mom, I would say when I was younger, I was perceived in a way that I really wasn't. My mom really, was afraid that I was going to have sex early. So if I looked at a boy, if I talked to a boy, there were situations where I would be standing outside talking to a boy, like at a church function. She would just walk up to me and slap me in the face in front of everybody in real life.
Wow.
Like, she was so paranoid. So my mom thought things that weren't true. You know what I'm saying? And so when she made an assumption about my pregnancy, I let her believe whatever she wanted to believe. I never went back and corrected her. I never went back and said, no, this is what it is. Like, she wasn't going to believe me anyway. She had already, like I said, people already had their own thought process about me, whatever that may be. My mom's vision may have been different from somebody else's, but every time I came in contact with someone, they would look at me, talk to me, and then make a judgment about me and not take the time to get to know me to see, oh, she's not who I think she is. I'm the girl, you never judge a book by its cover. That's me. Right. Unfortunately, those are the cards I was dealt. But when you sit and talk to me and I open my mouth and I begin to converse with you and tell you things, you begin to understand she's not who I think she is. And a lot of people didn't give me that opportunity. So my mom was a spanker or a beater or abuser, however you want to use it. And so instead of communicating with me about things, she would try to whip my butt. And I started fighting back. So then I was considered to be rebellious. Then all of a sudden, you get pregnant and they're like, well, she's probably out there doing this and that. So it's just like, I just allowed them to think whatever they wanted to think. It wasn't until I was pretty much grown that my mom knew really what went down.
Wow. So what is your relationship with your mother today?
My relationship with my mom? Oh, great.
Okay.
I have a great relationship with my mom. I have an amazing relationship with my mother. She is phenomenal. I think she's a better grandmother than she is a better mother still to this day. Right. We have come a long way. And I mean a very long way. And we still working through our challenges. We're still working through our past. Like, we still have conversations today about, my son's dad, like just being, how he was conceived and the experience of that night and the things that happened that led up to that, and her parenting and what I was doing and what was really happening. We still go through that. Like, I probably shouldn't say this because I don't know how this is, but like, there was a time when my mom, I was probably pregnant, but when my mom was passing judgment on me as what she thought I was doing, and never once asking me what I was doing, just telling me, I was angry. I was angry with her. I was angry for her for things that she was allowing to happen to me. And, I tried to kill my mom so many times. We talk about it now. Like, man, it is nothing but a blessing because she should be dead and I should be in jail. But I literally tried to kill my mom 1,000 times. Like, I couldn't, every time I ran away, she would get somebody to come pick me up. And so I felt like, well, then I'm gonna take her down. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not staying here. So I was so excited when she was deciding to move away. I was like, I'm not going. I'm going to stay with my auntie, and I'm not going with you. That was my first piece of freedom. And I stayed with my aunt for a couple of years, and then, I went and got my own place when I was 15.
Okay. Now, with that, at age 15, could you legally on your own go get an apartment?
I doubt it. But so I was pregnant with my son, my second son, and I had preeclampsia, which is like a version of high blood pressure, but it gets so high in your body that it can kill you and your baby. So I went into the hospital, and I was in the hospital for almost 3 months. Well, my roommate was a young lady who was pregnant with triplets. And so she was telling me, she was my age. No, she was older than me. She was 16. She was 16. Yeah, she was older than me by a year. And she was saying, you can go and get an apartment. I was like, I can't get an apartment. She was like, yes, you can. I said, there's no way I can get an apartment. Like, I'm not even 18 yet. And she's like, I know, but I know this guy, and he owns a house and he rents out apartments. And all you got to do is have a form of income, and your baby is going to be your baby's not going to be healthy. So you just need to go to disability. You'll get a disability check. You go to, social services. They give you a welfare check. He'll take all of that. And I said, well, how much? And she said, well, he only charging me, I think it was $800 or something like that, $1,000. I don't know. I don't remember. And I said, okay. I said, let me see what I can do. So she wrote the number down to the landlord, and I saved that. And she had the babies and left the hospital. She was gone like a month or so. I just saved that number. And after I had my baby and went through everything, my baby was 1 pound, 13 ounces. And so I couldn't take my baby home. So I was living with my god sister at the time. I couldn't take the baby home. So as I was preparing for my baby to come home, I had to have a place for the baby to live. And my oldest son was living with my mom at the time, and she was on her way to bring them back to me. And so I got an apartment. I called the guy. I told him my situation. I had a little bit of cash from my welfare check and stuff. I showed him my letter to SSI for my baby to let him know that that's what I would have. And it was a brick stone on Myrtle Avenue in Baltimore. It was on the 3rd floor at the very top. It was a 2-bedroom, and it was mine. It didn't have a refrigerator. It didn't have a stove. It did not have anything. It had really big holes in the floor, no elevator, but it was mine. Nobody was beating me. Nobody was raping me. Nobody was telling me what to do. Nobody was lying to me. It was mine, me and my babies and mine. And I moved in that thing with nothing, and just me and the rats. Real talk. I was like, I don't even care. We gonna figure it out. And I moved in there, and that was the start of my my journey of living by myself. And my friend girl came over, and she we the same age, and she's like, yo, how do you have your own place? Like, this is scary. I was like, I don't know, but he gave it to me. It's mine. And so, yeah, and I had such terrible experiences there. Like, not having a refrigerator or a stove when you have a brand newborn baby is like not even possible.
Yeah.
And I tried to make it possible, right? And room temperature, not room temperature, bowls, burning or putting the water in there, running it until it gets hot enough to be room temperature so the bottle can get cold. But the craziest thing that happened is that it was winter time. So my baby was born December, and he came home from the hospital in February at 4 pounds. And so I already had our apartment and everything, but I didn't have, like I said, a refrigerator stove. So I would take his bottles, and they were glass even flow bottles. They're not real glass, but some type of glass. And I would put them out on the fire escape and stuff them in the snow so that they get cold, because I didn't have a refrigerator. Right. Simple. That's what you would think, right? So I get up in the middle of the night, the baby's crying. I'm like, okay, cool. I jump up, I go into the kitchen, I open up the fire escape, the rats disperse, all my bottles, they done broke through and drank the milk. Every last bottle. I'm talking, I looked out there, I just started crying. I had no milk. I was not producing milk. I had no milk. I had no money. I was crying at the top of my lungs. The baby was crying at the top of his lungs. My son was crying. We were all crying. I didn't know what to do. I called my cousins who lived around the corner and asked them, would they please help me? They walked a mile from Murphy Homes to Lexington Market, Lexington Square to the 7-Eleven, and went and got some Similac and bought it back. And that was a very defining night for me. That was a very defining night for me. I was like, I can't live like this. I've got to figure something out. And so I started making moves a little bit differently. But before I even got a chance to do that, I was walking down the street, and this guy was like, you live over here? And I said, yeah. He said, these your baby? Those your kids? And I said, yeah. He said, how old are you? And I was like, I think I was 16 by this time. He was like, and both of those are your kids? And I said, yes. And he said, you live over there? I said, yes. He said, let me see your place. And I said, what? He said, take me to your place. I want to see your place right now. Take me to your place. And I should have said no, right? That's what I should have said. And that was my first thought. But my second thought said, take him. And so I followed my second thought. And I took him to my place, and he walked in my place. He walked all the way through it from front to back. He said, "You don't have no refrigerator or stove?" I said, "No." And he was like, "Wow." And he went back in the front, and he's like, "So how's this place laid out?" And I told him what I was doing for the kids' rooms and what I wanted to do. And he was like, "Okay." And he was like, "Here." And he pulled out a whole bunch of money and gave me like, I think it's like $300 or $500. I think it was $500. He's like, "Go down and get you and the kids something to eat. Talk to the guy downstairs and see if he'll let you put some food in his refrigerator. Go get some to eat. Go get y'all some clothes. Come back in a couple of hours and I'll be outside waiting for you." And I said, "Okay." So I did that. And when I came back in a couple of hours, he had a pickup truck outside of my house with a mattress, a box spring and a mattress, these like silver milk crates. I don't know if you remember these milk crates, but
Yes.
he brought that in with a black and white TV. He got me some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle blankets, and he put them over my windows as curtains. And he got me a toaster oven. And he just like went out of his way to do something small, you know what I'm saying? But they were major for me at the time. And he let me know that he was proud of me. He said that. He said, "I'm really proud of you, and you could be out here doing crazy stuff, but you out here really trying to get it together for your kids. I'm super proud of you. So I'm going to tell you something right now. You safe on this block." He said, "I had already let everybody know nobody will ever touch you on this block. If you have any issues on this block, you come see me. You tell them you come deal with Kibo." He said, "But other than that, you'll be fine. You safe." And as long as I lived in that neighborhood, he protected me and my family, me and my boys.
Wow.
And he never tried to touch me. He never tried to do anything inappropriately. He actually treated me as a human being. And for the first time, I felt protected. I felt like, oh, somebody genuinely cares about. I didn't know this person. I only saw him one more time after that when I lived in Charlotte many years later. And he was still the nicest guy. He was still very, very, very nice. Still the same thing. But he was the biggest drug dealer on the block.
Oh
And he saw something in me. So it was just things like that I have experienced, you know?
Right. I see.
Mm-hmm.
Now the owner of this property, I can't believe that the housing authority or someone didn't condemn that property to. I mean, I don't. You done lost me because there's a whole lot of things that you're telling me. I understand and I believe everything you're saying, but it's like it's a wild story because, like you
I
said,
know.
oh my God,
It's crazy. And you know what? Later, the interesting thing about this was they started running these commercials on TV
Mhm,
that said, if you think you have lead paint poisoning,
mhm.
or your place may be something about lead paint poisoning, and they were giving all the, like the symptoms of if your place was infected. And I believe that my place was infected with lead paint poison at the time. And so, but I didn't know. I was 16. I didn't know, anything about landlord rules and I definitely didn't want to call on him. Like, where were me and my baby gonna, where we gonna live? You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
I was thankful that he did that. But shortly after I met Kibo, the drug dealer I was telling you about, he's now, I'm sure, reformed or whatever. But anyway, after I met him, somebody told me about a program that you could go to and they would help you, if you were a young mom. And I was like, okay, cool. And so that's how I ended up getting a refrigerator and a stove and a crib and some other things that I got hooked up into some program in Baltimore. And they were looking at me like I was the basket case. So that also was something that bothered me pretty aggressively because you say it's a crazy story. Well, I'm sure they were saying the same thing because they were there with me live and in living color. So it was like, oh my God, we got this young girl here who's doing this and that and that. And so they started bringing trucks to my house. They started bringing. I had already had a therapist coming in for my son because he had told you he was 1 pound when he was born, so he couldn't walk at the time. He was like, I wouldn't say disabled, but I guess disabled. He couldn't walk at the time because he was born too early. Now he's everything, but then he was still trying to get his bearings together in life. And we stayed there for about a year, and then they helped me get some type of voucher that allowed me to live somewhere else. And I moved to a different side of town, closer to my aunt, like outside of one hood to another hood. And we stayed there for about 6 months. And then I started to go on this journey of like, I'm going to leave Baltimore. I'm going to try other things. I'm going to test other cities and states and kind of do that. But that first year when my boys and I were in that house on Myrtle Avenue, so many things were defining for me. And I told you about like the rat situation that happened. Well, I also was working at a hotel that I was trying to, I guess I had decided that I didn't want to be on welfare anymore. And at the time, my family, which is my God family, they were pretty much on welfare. And so when I would tell them, you know, I think I want to get off of welfare, I'm going to go get a job, they was looking at me like I was crazy. It was like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, I want to get off of welfare. I want to get a job. I'm going to go and get a job. They did not, you know, it was like almost like a joke. You know, I was like, why would you do that when you can just sit back and get money? Why would you go and get a job? And I was just like, I don't know. I just something about that. So I started working at the hotel, at one of the hotels, but I really wanted to get a job and like behind a desk, like as a secretary and stuff like that. And so I would go to the temp agencies and take the test for them to, you know, so I could be a receptionist. And when I would go take the test, I would fail every time. So I started taking my boys up to the library at Towson State, over by Towson State University, the Towson Library. And I would take the bus about 30, 45 minutes away every day so that me and my boys could, so that I could learn how to use Microsoft Office, basically. And so I would say maybe a couple of weeks in, the librarian, little white lady, she's like, comes over to me and she's like, how old are you? And I said, ma'am. And she's like, I seen you here every day with these kids. My son was crying. He was hungry. I didn't have no money at the time. And we had been there all day. And she said, like, you know, how old are you? And I told her I was like 16. And she's like, these are your children? And I said, yes. She, how old are your children? I told her. And she's like, and these are your children? I said, yes. And she's like, where are your parents? I said, I don't have any parents right now. And then she said, when's the last time this baby ate? And I told her, you know, I didn't know, whatever I told her. And so she walked away, came back, and she had given my son some crackers. And then she said, you come back up here tomorrow. And I said, ma'am, she said, I want you to come back up here and bring your kids with you. And I said, okay. And so she sent me on my way, and I rode that bus the whole way back down Pennsylvania Avenue. And I said, I am not going back to that library ever again in life. This lady is going to get me arrested. She's going to send me to, you know, a foster home, and they're going to take my babies away. And she's setting me up. And everything in me is telling me not to go back up there. I thought about it all night. I tossed and turned. The next morning I woke up and got dressed and took my butt right back up there. And when I got up there, I didn't know what to expect. I was sweating bullets. When I walked in the door, they welcomed me and my babies with open arms. They had a PlayStation set up, not the game PlayStation, but like an area set up for my boys to keep them. And then they took me to the side to the computer, and the lady worked with me for like months until I mastered Microsoft Office. And then every week I would go and take a new test, and then I'll come back with my test and be like, I failed again. And she's like, okay, we gonna do this. And it just became a thing. So when the first time I came back and passed the test, and I came into the library, it was a big deal. It was like, oh, you know, it's like, it was a big deal because I passed the test. And it was just it was an experience where that was just like the second person that was least likely for me to think would help me. You know, it was I noticed that at every part of my life, when everything and everybody has been against me, like fully against me, one person or two people here and there in the most unexpected places and the most unexpected people, the universe literally just like, they are my angels in real life. And they're the people who literally catapult me to that next level. So that year for me, the whole getting a job and the rats eating my bottles out and not having a refrigerator, not having a stove, waking up in the middle of the night and a rat is on my chest and a rat's on my baby chest and I'm throwing them off around the room and freaking out and watching the people getting abused. That year was a year that I said, like, this ain't gonna be my life. You know, there's so much more to me, and I need better for my boys, and I have to figure that out. I'm not sure what that is. I don't think I even began dreaming at that point. I still didn't think that I would live to see 18. When I turned 18, I didn't think I would live to see 21. When I turned 21, I didn't think I would live to see 24. By the time I got to 26, I realized I'm probably going to be here for a minute. But I never thought those things when I was younger. I thought somebody was going to kill me or take me out, you know, in some way. And or I was going to take myself out, you know, in some way, because everything was so hard. Everything was so hard, and it was so unwarranted in so many ways. And so that was a defining year.
Now, again, you have two kids, which roughly at this time, they both were less than 10 years of age. You yourself was 15 or 16. And where were the two fathers? Where were they?
Well, obviously, I was raped with my first son, so I never saw him again. And I've never seen him again since that night. And with my youngest son, his dad was in South Carolina. So my mom had moved to South Carolina. I went to visit, and we had a very rocky relationship, like I said. And I had condoms in my purse. I had never used them. Somebody gave them to me. I put them in my purse, left them there, didn't even think about them things, went on about my business, and was not sexually active at all. And my mom went into my purse, saw the condoms, and started beating me without even asking me anything. You know, she just I told you she was crazy like that. And she just automatically made assumptions, and we got into a big physical altercation about it. And I left the house for some weeks, and I got pregnant.
Wow. Great day. Oh, Lord, my God.
So,
you talked also about church, and the people there in the church were very judgmental towards you. Talk a little bit. We'll talk about spirituality in your life today. You know, because of all the things that you've been through.
That's a great question. So I definitely do not go to that church anymore. And I would say that I've definitely gone on my own spiritual journey. I stayed in that church until 2008. And then I decided that I wanted to explore other religions. I wanted to explore other spiritual paths to see what else the world offered. And I wanted to understand what religion was and what the importance of it was and how I was going to choose to incorporate it into my life. So I spent about a year and a half researching, learning, going to libraries, going to different places, you know, buying books, just researching. So I tell people all the time, jokingly, I've been every religion for at least 5 minutes. At least 5 minutes I've been every religion, right? But today I consider myself just as light, Light. You know, I don't have a title. I don't desire a title. I don't belong to anyone or anything in particular. But I know the energy that I put into the universe. I know the energy that I put out. And I do believe there's some type of higher being out there. I'm not sure who, when, where, how. I don't believe in gender. I don't believe in names. I don't believe in anything fictional that I just believe that there's something higher out there, and that my job here is to be the best version of myself. And not only to be the best version of myself, but to help other people to find the best version of themselves and to project that into the world as well. I read a book one time, an astrology book, and the very last sentence in the book said, people born on this day, the day I was born, if they weren't born, the world would not function properly. And I took those words very seriously. It made me feel like even more that my mission was important enough for me to push, for me to push through good and bad, for me to push past good and bad, for me to inspire when people get irritated by it, for me to stay up later, for me to wake up earlier, for me to work out harder, like for me to just be that example, And so spiritually, I connect with people's energy, and if they have really great energy, I'm all in. If they don't, I like to respectfully remove myself from the situation. And unless I need to be there to inspire, to motivate, and to lead and guide, and at that point, I'll make the decision as to how I want to engage with that energy in that moment.
I see. Okay, so after two bad relationships with different men, now that you're older, have you been able to find anyone to be part of your life that you feel like you actually love them, in a sense of having a heterosexual relationship, with a man these days?
I mean, I've definitely had some great relationships in my lifetime. I mean, I was a child when those relationships happened. I've been married. I have a beautiful daughter, happily married, happily divorced. And I've had some great relationships with guys where we just decided that it wasn't either right for us or wasn't right for us at that time, right? Timing is everything. But right now, I am happily dating. I am getting to know people. I'm an empty nester officially. All my children are grown. They all live in their own places, have their own lives. And so now I'm at the place in my life where I'm rediscovering who I am. I've been a mom longer than anything. I've been a mom since I was 11, Yeah. And so that's what I know better than anything else on the planet. And so now it's like I have to learn how to cook for myself, just for one person and not four, and different things like that. So I date. I was on a date last night. I date, but I think as far as being in a relationship, it's been about a year and a half, and I'm looking for not looking, but if I do decide, it's going to be somebody somebody where lifestyle is important to them. Not just lifestyle being important to them, but it's confident. That's confident, because like I'm a very assertive woman. In the office, at least, in the work that I do in the world. And I need somebody who's not going to feel uncomfortable by that, allow me to be who I am when I'm at work, and then allow me to be a woman when I'm at home. But that's not always easy. And a lot of times I meet guys who are intimidated by me, or they feel like they don't make enough money to talk to me. And I know that sounds, or if they do make enough money, they're a-holes. You know what I'm saying? They got, or they got other things going on, or fetishes and stuff like that. So I'm just very careful. I'm very careful about who I engage with. But I'm single. I'm definitely talking to people, and when I see somebody who's focused on their mission in the world, and what they're supposed to bring to the world, but also care about lifestyle and how we live and how we love and how we engage on a daily basis, I think, I'll have a great connection and be my friend too, because, I'm fun to be around.
That's right. Right. I understand. Right.
Yeah.
So now tell me, with your kids, how have they adjusted, as adults and stuff? Are they well adjusted now because of everything they've been through in the past? Or, how long did it take them to get that bad stuff out of their minds and stuff, and think about now things are better now, so are they adjusted now?
I would say definitely. I mean, they're probably more well-rounded than the average person. I mean, my daughter just turned 20 this weekend. She had her own place when she was 19, a 2-bedroom duplex with a car paid for. Like, she's together. You know what I'm saying? I have a rule in my household: you have to leave when you graduate from high school. You can't live with me after high school. Okay, I don't care who you are. You can't live with me after high school. You have to leave. So you can go to college, or you can go live with a grandparent. I don't know, but you can't stay in my house, basically. And it's really more to force them out into the world, because I've been on my own since I was young. So I have a very different perspective of parenting. It's the best thing I could have ever done So my daughter, through high school and middle school, it got real for her because she knew, I only got 7 more years before I got to get my own place or to figure it out, And so it was a different mindset. So for her, she's probably the most well-rounded because she grew up with us as adults, right? She's 14 years younger than my oldest son and 10 years younger than my youngest. Mm-hmm. But my boys, they've definitely, they had a different journey. I mean, we grew up, we were the same age, basically, It's like, so we grew up together, and they've always respected me as their mom, and but they definitely have had their own path. My youngest, he's a nomad. He travels all over the world. He just got back from Tokyo. And he's done 1,000 different things. He's been a chef. He's been a driver. He's now going to pilot school. He's worked and he's done everything. His thing is travel, test it out, see if I like it. If I do, stick it out. If I don't, move on. And so he's definitely the most like me. He's an adventurer. Whereas my oldest son, he's more settled guy. He's a creative. He's a writer. He's a well-known writer, actually. He has a wiki with a following. You can Google him. And he's got some really great original work. And he's doing great things. I have 2 of my children work in 2 of my companies. And they're helping to continue to build the family legacy and to ensure that when I leave here, and if they ever decide to have children, that our legacy continues to live. Right now, I don't have any grandchildren. All my friends have grandchildren but me. So it's like, I say that because I have a lot of friends who I met over the years who are like teen moms like me, just not as young as me. But their kids are grown and they have children, and my children have not. And to answer your question, my boys are definitely very, I feel afraid of having children and traumatized.
Right.
To be honest with you, because of the fact that they were born to such a young mom, and their friends, I would pick them up from school. Their friends were trying to holler at me. They're dealing with that. And then my son wanted to fight them. Don't be trying to talk to my mom. They're like, that ain't your mom. They're like, that is my mom. Like, that is not your mom. Like, that's my mom. And if you try to talk to her again, I'm going to beat you. So he went through that whole thing, and so those things, will shift your thought process. You being raised by a little girl, it would definitely shift your thought process. But I'm thankful they're not crazy. They're well-rounded citizens in the world, and they're all doing their thing. And so I feel very blessed. I feel like I did a great job raising them despite the circumstances.
Wow. Okay. Because I was going to ask you too, what has been the most valuable thing about what you went through growing up, to be be a mother so early, to have to be out on your own so early? What's the most valuable thing about all that for you?
Resilience. I come with something most people can't get, they would never be able to get through. The things that I've been through have made me so strong, have made me so resilient, has allowed me to see different perspectives, to see people differently, to engage with people differently. It has been, it was my curse, I thought. And as I've now grown as a coach, as a resilience expert, I can look back and clearly see that I was being groomed for this moment in time. And now I say I'm thankful, and I try to take everything that I've learned and I try to help other people get through situations, because they come with me with everything. Well, I'm getting ready to kill myself. I've already been there, done that. Well, I'm getting ready to get rid of my kid. Then they're done that. Like, I just, okay, I've already been there. Now what? Right? So now we can pull the layers back and help people get through whatever it is that they're getting through so that they can get to the other side. And that's, as a resilience coach, as a resilience expert, that is what it's all about. How helping people get through the hump, getting through the hard times so that they can get to the other side and continue to flourish and use what they've gone through as armor and as fuel to help them progress forward. So that's what I learned the most. I also learned, don't trust nobody. Or I would say, trust them as far as they show you. That's what I would say. Everybody's going to say everything, but it's what they do that makes the difference. And what I've learned is that people say lots of things, and most of the time they were lies. For me, that's my experience. They were liars. But people who showed me, treated me a certain way, those were the people that I felt like, okay, I understand what you're here to do and how you're supposed to be in my life, and I understand and I appreciate it. So, you know, I learned that as well, that it's actions that is in the proof. It's not the words that are coming out of somebody's mouth.
I see. Okay. Now let's talk about your business ventures. Tell me about your different businesses.
Yes. So right now I own a consulting firm called Identifies Consulting, and we actually started out. I quit my job in 2011, and I started writing resumes. That's how Identifies started. I was doing training and coaching and writing resumes, and for the first year, and then after that, some of my colleagues got me into doing bigger projects where I was training and coaching, recruiting and staffing firms across the country, flying all around the country and recruiting firms. And as I did those things, people would say, "What are you doing?" I would tell them what I do, and then they would say, "Oh my God, I've always wanted to start a staffing business." And I was like, "You did?" Like, that's not something you hear often. But I heard it so much that one day I put a webinar on and like 600 people showed up. I was like, dang, this is something like everybody, like a lot of people wanted. So I picked up a couple of clients, coaching them on the side, but I'm really focusing on my travels. And then I went to the doctor one day and they told me that I had cancer and that I had 3 months to live, basically, and to call my family and get them to come prepare for my demise. I looked at that doctor, was like, "I'm sorry, come again?" Like, wait, no, what are you saying, lady? And she's like, "You heard me exactly. Like, we're predicting you've got about 3 months. So we're in a race against time." And so I had to make some really quick decisions then to decide what I wanted to do. Did I want to stay and defy them, or did I want to believe what they say and prepare myself for my demise? And you already can tell by who I am that wasn't going down. So I made a pact with them that they couldn't call it cancer, that they could call it whatever they wanted to, but they couldn't call it cancer because that made me feel like death, and that I would do whatever they wanted, but I was not dying, period. And just be ready for me. And within 3 months, my blood got to the point where they could do the surgery. They called me and was like, "Coming to surgery tomorrow." And I was like, "They canceled my insurance today." She's like, "Do you want to live?" I said, "Yes." She's like, "You better come in here tomorrow." I was like, "I'll be there." And so I lived through. I lived through that. They removed everything out of my body, and had the oncologist there to ensure that it hadn't spread anywhere else and that everything was gone. And then I went back to work. But I say that to you because during the time that I was on bed rest, I had to make some really hard decisions. And one of those decisions was, what is my legacy going to be? This is when it became the most real to me ever. What is my legacy going to be? Am I going to leave here and this is just it for me? This is just it. This is the only piece of Dee Williams that's going to be left on the planet. And is this who I want to be remembered by? And so I had to fend for myself in a different way. I was on bed rest. I couldn't travel anymore. So I started coaching and training people a little bit more aggressively on starting a staffing business. I built a recruitmentstore.com, which is an e-commerce store where we sell recruiting and staffing products, startup products, digital products, and videos and coaching. And then I wrote a book and wrote a manual, and I launched Staffingpreneurs Academy, which leads me to the question to your answer. Staffingpreneurs Academy came about when I was on my bed rest and coming into this new version of Dee Williams, Audacionaire, that you see today. And so I'm really excited because Staffingpreneurs Academy has been around now since 2013. 2014, that brand. We've got about 3,000 staffingpreneurs. I help professionals, lawyers, doctors, attorneys, project managers, high school grads, college dropouts, tech engineers, tech developers, accountants, anything you could think of. I help them start their own staffing business within a specific niche market. Lots of nurses, lots of doctors. And so they come to me and say, Dee, I got money and I got an idea. I got money, a network, an idea. And I say, okay, I can flip that into anything. So I've had people like the butcher in Delaware that came into my class making $13 an hour, single young man with raising 3 kids by himself. Wow. And wanting a different life for himself. Did not want to be a butcher in a grocery store, and now I think we're 2-3 years in. He's about 2-3 million a year and doing his thing. Mm-hmm. I've got the nurse in Missouri. She started with me as a PR nurse, probably making about $60,000-$70,000 a year. She hit her $6 million mark last year. So, and those are just little tiny stories. So I take people who underestimated, the underdog, and I can totally transform their life like that. And I love that. I love the work doing that. So I do that with staffingpreneursacademy.com. And we absolutely love, if you're interested to start a staffing business or you know somebody, you want to tell them to come to Staffingpreneurs Academy. But while I'm training all of my clients, and since they am helping them build staffing businesses, one of the biggest challenges outside of it being a talent shortage is that there's a skills gap, which is one of the reasons why that the talent shortage exists in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a skills gap. And so I built Reskillify.com. It's all about helping people to upskill and reskill. And so we have a marketplace where people can go in and purchase courses and watch those courses and take them. But more importantly, we work with coaches and experts and influencers and celebrities and whoever else, and we help them build coaching brands, coaching programs and courses, and they can host those on the Reskillify platform. I also am the founder of the CannabisJobBoard.com, which is kind of like Indeed, but for the cannabis industry, but we're better. You can find cannabis jobs on the Cannabis Job Board. But if you're an employer, you can hire directly from the platform. You can do your interviews, your reference checks, your skills assessments, your background checks. Everything is done on your mobile phone or right through the desktop on the platform. You interview your candidates right there. The moment you start engaging with the candidates, it's an ongoing conversation back and forth. So the hiring process gets to be reduced by a lot. And we are still working out the percentages because I don't want to make up any numbers, but it gets reduced by a lot. And people are able to hire talent a lot faster. I have 2 more platforms that I'm working on, and I'm in the process of patenting a product. So I definitely stay super busy.
Cool. Very good. So now, so now to be a Black woman and having created all these different things, have your own vision, your own ideas and whatnot for the future. I know there are also challenges everywhere, especially when it comes to dealing with, white America. How do you, I guess, basically deal with all this and just set this up or whatnot so that you feel, I guess, a part of things or whatnot, regardless of if people want you to be a part of it or not. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so a few things. One, I'm definitely blessed with the gift of influence. So one of my special gifts is the ability to get people to take action and to move. And in order to do that, you have to be able to have a energy or a vibration about yourself where you can fit into any environment. And so when I was younger, before I started my entrepreneurial journey, and I'm this young girl from Baltimore, from the hood. I talk like I'm from this young girl from Baltimore, from the hood. And then I was recruiting, and then I would go to these meetings, and I'm going to just keep it real. I'd be there with all these white people, and they would be talking one way, and then I would open my mouth, and then they were looking at me like, who is this young lady? But I was killing it, though. I was like really good at what I did. So I began to see that I was being treated differently from that perspective. I felt the racial energy And so I started to think, how can I fit in? And so I began to mock them, not in a negative way, but to mimic them more. Like, what do they say? What, how do they react? So like small things that I noticed is that when somebody says something funny, I bust out laughing. Like, I let it go. I'm all natural with it, whatever. But when in a business environment, that's not what happens. In a business environment, they just say it's funny. And I didn't understand it at first, but they just say it's funny. They don't laugh. They say, "Oh, that's so funny." Mm-hmm. And so when I started to pick up on things like that, like, "Oh, don't laugh when you hear, just tell them, oh, that's so funny. Oh, you're so funny." Then they're like, "Oh, I am. Thank you." And then you realize like, oh, so I just started to pay attention. I would look at their mouth. I would listen to how they spoke, the inflection in their voice. I would go home and practice. And then I would go out and go into events and try to practice and put myself out there until I felt like I was at a place where I could feel comfortable presenting myself in a certain type of way. I told you I was growing up in church. So in church, the church I went to, you had to wear pantyhose, a girdle, a skirt. You could not wear pants and heels. So I already kind of dressed a certain way, but my dialect was not matching. Mm-hmm. And so the moment I opened my mouth, they were looking at me like I was some hood chick, and I was. So I really was, right? So, but I learned, and now I can go with the flow no matter where I'm at. But that was definitely challenging. And I would say being a Black woman in tech has been more challenging than anything. I feel like we're not necessarily taken so seriously. And if we are, then it has to be a beauty product, which annoys me, right? As if we're not smart enough to build a strong SaaS product. And as if our product isn't strong enough for everybody in the world to want to buy it. So they're definitely... Black women in tech get very little money from startups, from VC funding, where we're barely looked at. And while I do feel there are a lot of VCs that are coming up that are there to support Black women in tech, that's just not something that you're seeing a lot of. I look forward to that evolution where, as a Black woman who's building tech platforms, who's building electronic products, my patented product is an electronic product that everybody is going to hold in their hand, that we are seen as valuable, technologists, and that we too can have a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wonderful. Okay, cool. So for people that want to contact with you, they want your social media information, could you just give us that, please?
Yes. So on LinkedIn, on YouTube, I am at Dee Williams GA, which is Dee Williams, Georgia. That's what it stands for, Dee Williams GA. On Facebook and everywhere else, I'm at YOUR Dee Williams. So Your Dee Williams. And you can follow me on TikTok. I am on LinkedIn. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Pinterest. I'm everywhere. Instagram. And my team and I are always on social media. You might not talk to me directly, but you'll definitely talk to somebody from my team. If you want to start your own coaching brand, you definitely want to come to reskillify.com, though. You don't have to come and talk to me. Just come to Reskillify. You can get a 14-day free trial. And once you come on board, you'll have somebody to work with you to help you flush your brand out and help you get your courses and your course programs up. Starting a staffing business at staffingpreneursacademy.com. Looking for a job in the cannabis industry. You can go to the cannabisjobboard.com and then just stay on the lookout because I got more up my sleeve.
Okay. We really do appreciate our guests who participated in this episode, and we hope you learned something that will bless your day and your life. For all who are interested in learning more about the Gary Clement Radio Show podcast, please visit www.amazon.com and order my book, The Gary Clement Radio Show, When Strong Afro-American Men and Women Stand Up. It covers everything about us and features a variety of Afro-American personalities who speak out about the importance of education and literacy in the Black community. Well, we thank you for tuning into our podcast. Please send us your email address so we can contact you when we have new releases and new episodes and new projects as well. You can reach us at gccpresents@yahoo.com. And also, if you're interested in submitting any materials or want to get in touch with us, please do so by simply sending an email to gccpresents@yahoo.com. That's G as in Gary, C as in Charlie, C as in Charlie, presents at yahoo.com. So until next time, do take care. And this is a G2 Network Media production.